Chestnut about the landscaping. And apparently that's not an official part of accepting roads, but it certainly is of concern to us because there's gonna be expense involved in correcting what is now a pretty ratty-looking area on many of these roads.
Madam Chairman, and if I may ask a question, maybe if it's of Tyler or Chris, is the landscaping, is healthy, viable landscaping a condition of a development order from the city of Fort Myers? Or is it the subject of a development order from the city of Fort Myers?
Yes. Very short answer, yes.
So if, assuming a state of facts, assuming that the landscaping is dead or dying and not in conformance with the requirements of the development order from the city of Fort Myers, is there an obligation that the permit holder bring that up to the conditions of the development order?
The question that you're asking is a little bit more complicated than the answer you're looking for.
All I want is, if you give me your opinion, to the board's opinion, you give the board your opinion.
There is a minimum requirement for landscaping in both the city of Fort Myers and Lee County. What is actually installed in the developments in Gateway, either both in Pelican and in unincorporated county, normally greatly exceeds said minimum thresholds. I really honestly cannot tell you what those are because we don't look at the landscaping when we review the engineering plans. If that's something the board wants to change, we can definitely change that. But just so you know, we don't typically look at the landscape plans. Those are typically reviewed at the county or city level. So to answer your question, if the landscaping did not meet the minimum city site plan approval, then that is something that should probably be taken care of prior to gateway accepting it.
Okay, thank you.
Is the approval that we're doing tonight inclusive of landscaping?
My opinion is we would be taking ownership of the road, which means we take ownership of all the improvements in the road.
Inclusive of landscaping?
Correct. We would be the owner of everything.
Okay, because that's my understanding that this is a public road and it belongs to the CDD.
It's dedicated to us, but they're proposing to deed it to us.
But the landscaping belongs to the master association?
No, the
Or it
deed.
belongs to us?
With the deed, if we accept the deed to the road, which is part of this conveyance package, the landscaping, curbing, everything is ours.
Well, I'm trying to get who operates and maintains it going forward. Master association.
Well, the master
would.
association.
And that's why the master association has an interest in this issue.
Through the master.
Yeah, that was my
Through
point.
the agreement we have with the master, correct.
So it has ramifications if we accept it inclusive of the landscaping, and the landscaping has a problem. And I think that's what I'm hearing, is your issue.
But the landscaping having a problem and not meeting the development order Tyler was saying that may well be two different things.
Well, no, I'm assuming that there was a landscape, I think I said this about 4 months ago. I'm assuming there was a landscape plan for that.
We haven't been able to get it.
David, is there a landscape plan for Pelican, for this section of Matarita?
Yeah, I'm confident that the developer is in possession of a landscaping plan for probably all Pelican too.
Okay.
They can, I mean, you can ask them.
Is there any reason why we cannot, I'm trying to avoid holding this up. Is there any reason why we can't get a copy of the landscape plan, then go out and verify that the landscape plan has been followed, that now they're protected, and then memorialize any shortages or deficiencies in the landscape plan to make it subject to the bond?
Well, I think you would need a new bond. If our approval, which had a bond associated with it, did not include approving landscape plans, the bond would not cover landscape improvement, so there'd have to be a separate bond for that.
Well, that's why I asked the question earlier. Is landscape inclusive with this or not?
I don't know the answer to is landscape covering the bond. I don't know the answer to that. I really don't know.
I mean, this is ridiculous. If the
Well, our
landscaping's included with the road, then it's got to be included with the bond for the road.
The bond probably typically, from the district's perspective, is to cover the improvements that are being reviewed by the district, as I understand it. If they are covering additional improvements,
Well, then you get into things like monuments and that type of thing that, no,
So, I mean, what I typically see covered under the estimate that encompasses the bond is things like curbing, asphalt, base, drainage, sodding. I don't know if landscape is included, I really don't. We can look into that. Let me look into that. How about that?
Well, I'm trying to avoid kicking the can down the road on this thing, because notwithstanding this particular issue, this thing's ready to go. It's ready to go. It may not be in a position we would like it, it's not perfect, but we've got the money to make it done. I think the question I've got is, what is the time limit on, that WCI has to perform the fixing of all these deficiencies before the bond expires? 12 months?
The bond, in accordance with the permit criteria manual, 10% of the performance bond has to be retained for 3 years from the time of acceptance by the district. Is that correct?
How long do we have to say, how long do we have to live with the deficiency? We have to wait three times 365?
arguably, they could wait till the last end of the bond, that's correct.
They could wait 3 years to fix the curbs, in
Correct.
other words.
Correct.
I think so, yes.
In the permit criteria manual, the district, doesn't state they accept landscaping. I think it's Tony's position that the landscaping's part of the road, but
That's
when it
correct.
says district acceptance, it does not mention landscaping, even though it is mentioned in the inspection side of the permit criteria manual.
And
Well, if we accept it and we go out and check it, are we not covered? Because the only issue would be then is, does the bond have enough money to cover inclusive of the landscaping? I mean, you talked a reduction to 10% and 10% of X, what is it, 150,000?
Yeah, probably about 174,000.
That is one hell of a lot of money.
Tyler, I'm going to ask Rhonda to come up first. Yep.
You get assurances, landscaping's in the bond, you get the landscape bonds.
I need to make it very clear to the board tonight, we need a vote coming out of this today. Not only for Matarita 2A, but also for Casella 1 and 2. We're not gonna take tables anymore. So we need a vote coming out of this today. And as a reminder, this was certified by South Florida in August of 2015. We've been in this for 2 years. We were presented punch lists from Tetra Tech. We complied with those punch lists. Now you guys want to bring up landscaping issues. You want to talk about monuments. These were not things that were ever discussed previously. And as we have said to you previously, we need a process that is consistent, predictable, and repeatable. And we're not getting that. So accept it, deny it, we're not tabling it. There's a bond in place for $196,000. That's the process. We've complied.
That's the 10% that will be left behind with the acceptance. Is that what you're saying? It's
That's-
196,000?
It'll be reduced down. It's been final lifted.
Okay.
There will be a bond in place for 3 years, but we're done.
There'll be a bond in place for 3 years for how much money?
10%. We can send that to Chris after the meeting.
What she's saying is that since the final lift is done, the amount of the bond's going to be reduced from 196 down to some other number,
Right,
lower number.
right.
Not going to be quite as much money because the final lift has already been
But
performed.
we're not tabling this. I need to make it very clear. We're done. So we need a vote.
Again, I get back to if,
Rhonda, stay there, would you, for a minute, would you please? When Mr.
as
Tinkle
long,
was
as long as,
finished-
as long as we feel that we've got the landscape issues covered with the combination of the other items covered by the bond, my deal is I'm ready to accept.
Madam Chairman, may I?
Yes, please.
Rhonda, it's very sad that we've come to this point. And I want to find a mutually agreeable way to proceed. But speaking for myself, we haven't had anywhere near a perfect history with WCI. And so we're trying to be very conservative and cover everything. It's been stated just a few minutes ago that construction trucks belonging to your subs are damaging the curbs, maybe even as we speak. If you disagree with that, we should say something right now.
Okay, I didn't want to interrupt you out of respect. However, that area is built out.
Say again?
So that area, Matarita 2A, is built out. So if there's construction traffic, how do you know it's not homeowners' construction traffic? Because we're built out there. This is how old this subdivision is. We have got to move forward. And if they don't like the landscaping, then take it over and do what they want to do with it. Change out the plants if they don't like the kind of plants that are in there. This has not been a condition or a requirement or a punch list item or anything like that, and it continues to be, an arduous process that is not consistent or predictable.
Speaking from my history, we really don't want to get into remediating things by the use of a bond, okay? That's a whole different bag that most people don't want to get into if they've had any experience with it. From what you just said, I am thinking that you're saying to us, take it as is. And the bond probably won't be needed. Was that what you're saying when you say that it's been done for 3 years and
Yes.
that homeowners' trucks are making trouble with the curbs?
Yes, you've got staff recommendation. You've got Tetra Tech that signed off on this. I don't know if you guys understand, but Tetra Tech, I got an email from Tyler on June 16th, signing off on the work, and it's taken me 4 months from the time that he signed off to even get it up here and heard on the agenda. You've heard me, you've seen me come here since March about how long it's taken to get these things approved.
Question, Rhonda. Hypothetical. A year from now, we go out there and the cuts in the curb, the scratches, the notches have not been fixed. Are we going to get a debate as to whether it was created post-move-in or pre-move-in? In other words, Billy Bob's Ajax trucking backs up with the support drop down, and he just scratches the daylights out of one of the curbs. Are you saying that that's not recoverable by the bond? Because that's putting us in a position then that we're almost going to have to either have a very exacting video as of the date we accept, or we ask that it all be done and we have a line in the sand that anything after this date's not yours.
Well, I think that's a
I don't know
very
how-
good suggestion.
I don't know how you
document
do it otherwise.
So, let me
We have
ask,
a punch list that we completed per Tetra Tech.
Well, but I still would like an answer to the question is that if Billy Bob scratches the payment between now and the next 36 months, and we accept this, are you going to fix the scratch?
Am I gonna fix this scratch?
Yes.
I don't wanna-
Will WCI fix it? In other words, repair it.
Yeah.
That's going to make a
If
big difference of how we proceed.
What we've always said is that if we cause the damage, we will fix it. If we cause the damage, we will fix it. But I'll let you.
But the position that puts us in then is we have to memorialize as of today, every single deal. Let's say the guy comes along and he pulls off the edge of the road. We see this all the time. He pulls off the edge of the road and he's got a semi. And he just takes and plows up the sod for 50 yards? Are we going to get into the deal of he said, she said? Because if it's under the bond, then it's going to be fixed. If it's not under the bond, or if it's somebody else's fault, now we're in the position that we've got to catch the sucker that did it, or we have no recourse and we're going to pick it up the tab ourselves. I mean, that's the mess you get into.
And practically, that is a little bit of the issue. I don't think the bond is intended to cover things other than our defects. If let's forget about the cracks that are in there. If the curbing all of a sudden looked perfect, we weren't having this discussion right now, and a year from now it cracked, and it turns out that's because of defective work. The bond, if to the extent we didn't fix it, the bond should cover that. If Mr. Measy, for example, contracts with a paver guy to come out and do new pavers, and he damages the curbing on his way out to Mr. Measy's house, that should not come off the bond, nor should that be WCI's responsibility. Now, practically, there could be some situations where it's tough, but philosophically, that's how it should work.
Then that gives us no choice then that we have to take then and have a video of every single foot of what we're accepting to draw the line in the sand that as of this date, you guys are done and anything else going forward, just like in my community. Somebody does that and scratches it, we pick up the tab.
We would probably like that, I think. Because part of our problem is this happened a year and a half ago, so now we are in the situation. What cracks are because of the normal settling that Tyler
Yeah,
mentioned?
that's a different issue.
And that's kind of where we're sitting.
I'm not worried about that.
You know,
Okay.
I wasn't there, I don't know what it looked like a year and a half ago, but from our standpoint, it met all of the criteria then. Now, of course, we're a year and a half later, the gentlemen go out and inspect and they see some issues, and rightfully so, what's the deal with these? But our view is a lot of that probably is maintenance.
Okay, well then I'm of the opinion then we can get by that with a video. We go out tomorrow, we video the thing, and then we just keep it in a vault. Then we know what was there before and what was there afterwards. You need to fix everything that was there afterwards in the next 36 months. Now, let's get back to the one that's a little bit more complicated. I have a real problem arguing and or even discussing landscaping when I don't have a set of plans of what I'm talking about. Can we get a set of the plans and specs of the landscaping for which we have been advised by council that is our responsibility on accepting and issuing this approval? I don't know what else we do is to check that.
Chris,
Plus the drainage is separate.
I'm willing
you
to
confident-
go along, but I gotta have something to address this issue as we have been told by our attorney that it's our problem.
let me ask Chris one question. Are you confident of the 174,000, that's about what will be residual from the bond?
I would have to go check and see what the deduct, was on the final lift, so it's probably considerably less with the paving, and the part is too, when did it happen? Was that damage from a construction vehicle? And as you say, the documentation's good, but that
But when you wrote your
documentation.
opinion here, you were of the opinion that it did cover it.
And is that 36 months from today's date that the bond would be available to us?
Yeah.
Assuming we accept this tonight,
Yeah,
then
be
that
today's
bond
date.
is there for the next 36 months for
Yeah.
us to.
From date of acceptance and
Okay.
conveyance by the board.
Just
I
wanted to-
will say, though, that I think it's a little unfair for us because it's taken 2 years to get here, and so you're essentially adding on 3 more years when it should be a much quicker process. But I'm just gonna make that comment.
We'll
Can we get the plans of the landscaping? If we go ahead and accept this, I'm willing to go down that, but I'm willing to go down that on the grounds that we get a copy of these plans that are inclusive in this to verify that we have or don't have issues.
I'm happy to go back to the office and get a set of plans.
Okay.
And I think a point is too, when they talk about the time that's elapsed, the appropriate time might have been during the inspection to take that video, because if the landscape's unacceptable, has it been in the last year, the last 6 months? They're complete, it's taken us 8 months to get on the agenda. Well, a lot of landscaping can die in 8 months for various reasons.
Well, that's a good point too, but what to keep in mind, I think Mr. Pierce suggested earlier, and Tyler did too, is there are probably some minimum requirements by code that you might have the obligation to do. In terms of other landscaping, those are purely aesthetic concerns, and in my experience, and maybe Mr. Pierce will, have a different experience, although I think not, is when a district takes over infrastructure that involves landscaping, particularly in a nicer community, and the residents want higher end landscaping, so to speak, usually by agreement, the district will fulfill its basic responsibilities, and the association would then cover those enhanced ones if they want nicer flowers, replacement flowers, whatever it may be, so.
Well, the problem with all that is that, as best I can tell, those were not submitted as during the normal application process. Is that correct?
No,
We never saw the landscape plans to accept or reject, as I understand.
And I'm not even sure there's landscape plans that get approved under the permit criteria or anything, or are you talking the
I
ones
think
that the
it's good,
city would
I
look
think,
at?
I think it might be a subject for change now, if we have been told it's our risk to do it. The first time I've heard that. First time I've heard that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, when you mentioned the risk, it was city required, if the city came out and said, you're not complying with our
Not,
code.
it's risk and obligation. It's risk of noncompliance with the city development order and its obligation as to maintaining the facilities to the standards that the community wants and the district wants. So it's a combination of risk and obligation.
You could go with the same thing, though, I don't want to get this thing going down at this track, but I got to take stop signs. You can go with the Lee County beautiful steel aluminized piece of crap stop sign, or you can do the ones that like we have here in Gateway, cost $1,500, $1,800 a crack. Lee County could care less if it's got a nick or a scratch in it. At that price, we do. You can argue that same thing. But on those, we get a set of plans to review and comment, and have an alternative or an opportunity to make a point or a decision. On those landscape plans, they just all of a sudden seem to fly in today. I'm willing to take and go again with a motion to approve this on the basis that we get a set of the landscape plans so as to be able to make a determination of what may or may not be applicable to the bond in the way of deficiencies.
And a video.
Oh, and well, I think the video bill is our responsibility to do.
I know, but if it's gonna be part of the motion, it has to be stated in the.
Yeah, I definitely want us to go get the video, no doubt about that. And I wouldn't have any problem of sharing it with them so that they know exactly what was on that as of this date that we approve it. But I'm ready to go ahead. I don't know anything else we're gonna do to change this or beat it to death anymore, so I make the motion that we go on ahead and approve it.
Well, you already had made a motion, so are you
I'm sorry.
amending your motion?
I'm
to
amending my
include-
motion only to the addition of that we get a copy of the original landscape plans for Matarita.
And any development order associated with landscaping, too, because it may be a bit different, based upon the conversation.
And any development order associated with the landscaping for Matarita 2A.
As well as a video.
Well, the video we're doing.
And that staff does a video.
Staff does the video. Yeah, staff does the video. That's our
The
job.
Second would like a date of when the landscaping plans are handed in.
How
Would you
fast
like
can
it?
you have those to us, Ron?
Tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Okay,
Sorry.
they have to be handed in by October
20th.
20th, thank you. And that's how I'll amend it, with the date.
So that is your second?
Yeah, but I
okay.
wanted the date with October.
And that's,
20th.
And the
motion maker
maker
amends his
agrees
motion.
with that.
That's
Yeah.
acceptable. Thank you. Call for the vote.
Any other vote, or, excuse me, any other comments?
Mr.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Bob. I told you I'd give you time, and then I forgot.
Well, I've been well over my 30 minutes. Bob Deppert, Pelican Preserve Ponds Work Group. With respect to Matarita 2A, drainage and roads, and that item only, we have 4 problems. The first is conservation area number 14, which comes into a cul-de-sac at the end of Matarita Drive, is not currently built properly. The berm is not high enough. That whole court flooded. I think Lennar is well aware of it, and they need to fix it. Nevertheless, it's there. And I heard South Florida bought everything. Well, they didn't do a very good job of checking them, because this is deficient. Secondly, we did have a storm. It was called Irma. And we did put a lot of material in our catch basins, and particularly in the Matarita 2A, when it was under about 18 inches of water. All the stuff that was in the conservation area flowed out and is now plugging my catch basin. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect them to clean it before they come to us. We as residents are already going to pay $69,000 to clean other catch basins that are under control. Why would we knowingly accept catch basins that are dirty? That's unreasonable to me. I can't help it that the storm came 2 years after they've been trying to do it. The fact remains is they're dirty and they need to be cleaned. Second, the next item is we have a requirement for video inspections. And although I have a lot of inspections, including areas in Matarita, we don't have all of them. I received this document just today from Tetra Tech, and we have a number of storm connections that have not been videoed. So therefore, they have not been reviewed. The overwhelming majority have, but I got a lot of them that haven't been, and I don't know whose fault that is.
How did this, how did we get this far? We're just finding out about this.
Well, we have been working with Tetra Tech
Okay.
and the
hold on.
district and getting all the
Ty-
videos.
Tyler's got something.
Yeah,
Is-
getting
was-
all the videos to them, and then we paid a special task to have those videos fact-checked against the drawings.
Were these videos that weren't done or done in error? Would,
We don't have, we have pipe sections in these communities that have not been videoed. And what we did is we laid out the roads, and you have pipe number one going to pipe number two. And you check it on the drawing, yep, it's a 36-inch RPC, and it's 176 feet long, but there's no video for it.
well, this is certainly an issue. Tyler, what, you were raising your hand, what's the issue?
Well, let me finish it.
Okay, sorry.
And my last item, the fourth item is, if you have been out in the new communities, you will see an awful lot of our stop signs, street signs, and a number of signs are now leaning. Some of them are damaged or broken. I can't speak specifically to those, but they all need to be fixed before we take it. Again, it happened because of Irma, but it happened. Why would we knowingly accept that? Thank you.
Tyler.
Okay. So, again, Tyler Wainwright. So, remember earlier when Danny talked about the task authorization for Pelican to go through and compile all of the storm DVDs and make spreadsheets about, you know, this DVD covers this pipe section, this pipe section, this section for Matarita, and we said, okay, here's a list of all the repairs. So that's what we're currently working on. So we're going through and making spreadsheets and saying, you know, just compiling all of the information in a nice, neat manner so that anyone, most probably Pelican and Bob, can go through and look at those. We're not done with that task. However, specifically on this community, Matarita Phase 2A, I can tell you that I actually personally went through and looked at every single one of those videos in Matarita 2A, and they are good. The last hang-up item for us to recommend approval for that particular community was that there was one pipe, and I forget the structure numbers, but there was a joint that was leaking, and we asked them to grout it. That was the very last item, and I think that was completed a couple of months ago, I want to say in March or April sometime around.
So the issue is, that you're saying, is that we do have all the sections. You've seen video for all the sections, just that Bob doesn't have them.
That is correct. I don't think
It's the
that,
document that Tetra Tech gave Collins. It doesn't list what Tyler's saying.
that is 100% correct.
So
We have
what we're saying is that we have it,
documented all
what we have is a deficient spreadsheet.
That is correct. We are in the process of proceeding with that task authorization to go through and document all of that stuff in a nice, neat table and tell you exactly which DVD has what and all of that sort of thing.
What-
That task is not complete. However, I can tell you, I've looked at every single one of those videos and they're good.
But to me, from what Bob just brought up, certainly one of those causes a little bit of concern in that Conservation Area 14 having a berm that's not to the proper elevation. That didn't have anything with Irma. I'm sorry, hold on, Dave. I want to say the other three all appear to be Irma-related, and I'm going to ask for some legal help on that, but David, go ahead.
The only thing, there is no conservation area being conveyed to the
David?
district in this
That-
situation.
That's correct.
So,
Yeah, but the berm being deficient is impacting our road. You're trying to get rid of the road.
It has nothing to do with
Here's,
2A.
here's the way, right.
so
It is,
I'll,
that is to it, that is Matarita.
so I'll let David and Bob come up to the microphone and talk.
Where's
But
West
I will tell you that the area in question is in Matarita 3, where there is a berm that is not the correct elevation. It's in Matarita 3. Yes, to Bob's point, it does drain the roadway of Matarita 2A.
Okay, but but the berm's in 3, but it impacts the road in 2A. That
You're
it?
saying it doesn't hit 2A at all. I thought 2A was in.
Kind of, sort of. It's in 3.
Okay. So then we take it back then that the three issues that we got, and this is like chasing a goose. We got three items here that have concern of the people that are essentially Irma-related. I know where this is leading. To me, Tony, this is legal. I don't know where we go from here on that.
Well, the one that you're talking about, the signs and the siltation, and what else was it, Ramona?
Catch basin.
Catch
Well, the
basins?
catch basins, I call it the siltation and the catch basin issue. By way of example, under the South Florida Water Management District permit, the permittee is responsible for operation and maintenance of the system and compliance with the permit conditions up until the time of the transfer of the operating permit to another entity. And so in this case, that's the developer, WCI&R. So I would say that's probably, that maintenance is an obligation of the South Florida Water Management District permit, in my opinion. And so I would submit that that is a WCI&R
So
obligation.
then, any of these items that we've got, or that we have identified, could be added to and attached to the bond?
Well, I don't know. I don't know, if, you know, David has a comment. No, I don't know if they can be added to the bond.
I'm trying to,
The signage is part of the bond, it's the traffic signage, so it's on the bond, yes.
But the
What about the
siltation
cleaning
sounds
of
like
the
an
catch
operational and
basin?
maintenance issue as opposed to a construction issue. I'm sure that's what the surety, I mean, that's what the carrier would say. That's not a construction defect issue, that's an operational issue. And that they probably would not cover that. What's the estimated cost, Tyler, to clean out those catch basins?
We're paying $69,000 for,
about 120, something like that.
So, looking at the plans for Matarita Phase 2A, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like 8 cross drains roughly. Is that right? So there's 8 cross drains. I don't want to give you a precise number, but probably 5K or less to go clean them all.
Okay. Yeah. That's not a big number.
You know, we're gonna be going through all
I state,
this again. I
I'm
think.
I know.
gonna stand where I'm at.
Okay. I'm gonna, at this point in time, if there's no other conversation on this or questions, I'm gonna call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
So the motion passes 3-1.
And just for the safety, Chris, tomorrow, when you're videoing these, God, that's hard to say.
Videoing.
Videoing these, can you also document the items that Bob has brought up relative to the signs leaning that need to be addressed?
Good point.
All right, that brings us to turnover and conveyance of Casella 1 and 2.
You know what I mean?
Chris?
Yes. And basically, same thing, turnover and conveyance, Casella 1 or 2. We had issues that were brought up similar with the curb. Casella 1 is basically built out. It has not had the final lift done, and we are assuming that when they go in and do the final lift, as they have in past projects, that they'll be addressing the curb and gutter issues in that development.
So Casella 1 and 2 are in, like Matarita 2A, only difference is we do not have a final lift on these?
On 1, there
Well-
has been no construction that started on 2.
Casella 1 is nearly complete. I think you're working on the last couple buildings, is what I heard the last time. When do you anticipate the final lift occurring in Casella 1?
Oh, that's the apartments, okay,
Right.
condos. You're on a roll.
All right, so, Casella 1, you know, we're nearly built out, so our process is that we go in there and we do the final lift and we repair the broken curb. And we do that in conjunction with Tetra Tech. They walk it with us, we prepare a punch list, we complete it, they sign off on it.
And so, final lift in the next 2 months, 3 months, 4 months?
Probably within, I would say within the next 3 months. And then-
And you haven't even started construction in Casella 2, correct?
Correct. But then once that gets to 90% built out, we do the exact same process.
But they're like Siamese twins, they're together and you want them approved together.
But this is complicated. We get this little situation now with Casella too, as opposed to that Matarita. We accept this right now, and construction hasn't even started. How are we going to handle breaks, cracks caused by the construction in this period of time?
Like the suggestion in the video, but again, you've got a 3-year bond. Okay, I can tell you that Casella 1 built out in less than 3 years. You've got a 3-year bond on that. That'll get 10%.
Mr. Manager, can you tell us how much the bond is?
I would have to look, I think it's about 1.5 or $1.7 million on the performance. And also, it could help too that during that construction process that we're on site a little more and taking video cameras so we could document, is it a construction vehicle? Is there an issue caused by the vertical construction versus, a homeowner?
So you anticipate finishing Casella 1 in the next 3 months. When do you believe you're going to start construction in Casella 2?
I believe we're close to starting construction probably in the next couple of months.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to proceed with the turnover and acceptance of Casella 1 only, with the same provisos of videoing.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I just want to say that's not going to be, I respect that, but that's not going to be an acceptable. These are permitted together, they're ready to go. We've met all the criteria, we've done all the punch lists, we don't break up phases. And again, we're looking for consistent, predictable, and repeatable. We've got bonds in place.
And Rhonda, I hate to argue, but I can argue the other way, that we have no control over that. It could be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years before you do that work. I'm not willing to go down that road. I'll go down number 1 with you, but I will not go down the road on number 2. I just don't believe in that.
All of that 2 meetings ago,
Yeah.
but
With the,
Yeah.
okay, so with the concern that you guys have about this, okay, as a one-time good faith gesture, okay, we would be willing to increase the bond on this.
By,
Instead of 110%, we would go to 120%, okay? For both Casella 1 and 2. And our estimate, our calculation, which we can discuss with Chris afterwards, would be approximately $305,000 bond. Right now, your permit criteria manual is 110%, and that would be $178,000. So we're offering to go from $178,000 to $305,000, even though that's not consistent with your criteria, but as a good faith effort to demonstrate that we're going to complete the final lift and the curb like we've done in all the other communities, we need to have 1 and 2 approval, not partial.
a question that I have, if there's better oversight and they catch one of your vendors damaging something, are you going to fix that? Or are you going to
Yes.
say that that has to come out of the bond?
No, we will fix it.
So
We
that-
fix it.
that would
We
be
actually
outside
go
of the
back to
bond.
the vendor and we back charge them. We want to hear from staff if something gets broken. We absolutely will fix it.
Okay.
Of the increased bond amount and the terms and the amounts.
Chairman, also, WCI, no, they do not want a claim on the bond. They're incentivized to fix it while we're in there, just so you know. So if it draws our attention, we're faced with doing it or putting on the bond, they're gonna do
They're
it.
gonna
I mean,
fix
you
it.
know, so just to make that point.
Bob, you wanted to speak.
Always. Relative to Casella, and Tyler may be able to correct me, but I don't have any data on the Casella as far as videos that have been inspected yet. And again, I got this document at 1 o'clock today, so I'm assuming they haven't gotten any. That may not be right, maybe they just haven't filled it out yet. Second thing, catch basins, same concern. Catch basins are dirty. The last concern is the flowway. We have a island in the flowway. If remediating that can come out of those funds, then I'll shut up. Thank you.
Tyler, are all the catch basins video, or I'm sorry, are all the sewer segments video?
Yes, so the particular issue with that spreadsheet on Casella is that on that community, we went through all the videos, we made a bunch of comments, WCI, Flash and R went through and fixed a bunch of stuff. We completed our review, we gave our stuff back to Gateway. So we're in the process, the video specifically I'm talking about. So we're in the process of going through this spreadsheet. The spreadsheet had video numbers and all those sort of things. So we gotta go back and get those DVDs back, go recreate the spreadsheet. So that's why that stuff isn't filled out for Casella. The items that were of concern in Casella, as far as the storm piping, have been fixed. Now, I do just want to comment on, because you made the motion to accept phase 1 and not phase 2. It's complicated in Casella because MAT 2A was very simply 3 little sections of road and a couple of storm cross drains. Casella, there's 2 lakes in Casella, there's a flowway expansion in Casella, and there's a bunch of drainage piping that goes both ways. You really can't take half of it. You either got to take the whole thing or don't take any of it. It's because they're to delineate what's going to be phase 1 and what's going to be phase 2 and who's what where is going to be complicated.
Okay, I'll withdraw the motion then, hearing that, because I hadn't heard that before, and then go back then. I would like to have both your and district management staff's opinion on the proposal of the basically doubling of the bond amount.
Can I go first?
Well, I think it's a nice gesture, and I think that as a district, we just need to do a little better job of being out there, so if these incidents happen, we can demonstrate to them, hey, it was your contractor that did it, or, you know,
Yeah,
and
well-
have some proof. In other areas where we've had obvious things like a contractor damaging a meter box, a sewer clean out, it hasn't been any issue at all to get it repaired and replaced.
Now, I'm going to talk about inspection later. What's your thought on this?
I probably shouldn't say that. I don't like bonds at all. Getting money out of a bond is really complicated. I think you're much better off relying on having the developer make the repairs outside of the bond. That's by far the better way to go. I mean, if you had to, yeah, you do go back and rely on the bond, but it's a complicated process that Gateway and I certainly don't want to be a part
Warranty
of.
then.
But the problem I've got with this is right now is, one, how in the hell did we get in this position in the first place of having this put together like this if it was going to be built separately? Because it should have been separated. But anyway, notwithstanding that, I would make the motion to go on ahead, accept WCI Lennar's deal of the offer of the additional bond. And again, with the understanding that we're going to go out and we're going to memorialize everything.
The way it is now.
It is right now. And much contrary, Bob, to what you said on that flowway and my discussions with South Florida, I don't think that dog hunts. That's the problem. I just don't think that dog hunts. I don't think we have a leg to stand on that. I can sure let you know that as long as I still can see, this ain't ever going to happen again, that we get conned on a set of plans that come together and have a gap. That isn't going to happen again.
What I would suggest is if that's going to be the motion, that any bond, that any acceptance by the board of an increased bond amount indicated by Ms. Brewer would be reviewed and approved by district staff and council and engineer for contact, to make sure that everything that we're talking about is covered and the amount is appropriate.
Is the landscaping included here?
I'll add that. I'll add that to the.
If we're taking a roadway facility, we have the same issue on landscaping, yes. So maybe that other additional condition about the plans for landscaping and permit would be part of the motion too?
Same thing.
Is
Same
there any
thing.
landscaping in Casella?
It may have died, but it was there.
You got, the only thing I know, the only thing I know is you got entrance common area and the cul-de-sacs at the end, that's about it.
Are we clear that they need to bring it up to I was unclear.
That wasn't part of the
I was unclear on
motion.
the last one as to who needs to bring it up to what standard.
I've lost you, Phil. What do you
We
mean?
need to get the landscape plans.
Yeah, I
and the
understand.
Yes.
Development in order to even understand.
My thing is that the project is the project, and the project is inclusive of plans that were used to build it, not what the county standards are. Now, the exception to that would be is if somebody tried to sneak something through and got it through the county that was subpar. And the stuff that WCI is doing is way, 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 way beyond what the county has done, so I don't think that we have an issue on that. So I'll go back and with the recommendations that Tony made changed my motion
To what?
to going on ahead and approving it.
One and two both?
One and two, yes. Bite my tongue in saying it, but like Tyler said, a lot of this stuff was done a long time ago and got us into this position, and I don't know that I want to go back and retrace all that stuff. But I want to make sure that we're covered to the extent possible on these things.
So-
I don't know any other way of doing it.
So
And that
that
seems to be a happy
includes the
medium that they've
Increase
offered.
Increased bond, and that we
With
get
terms,
the
conditions, and dollar
landscaping
amounts
plans.
acceptable to staff, and I think the $308,000 number, is that what you indicated, Rhonda?
305.
305,000.
And I can give you a draft.
Okay. Again, that's the motion.
Do I have a second? I'm gonna second it. Good discussion?
I'm tired.
I'd like to ask our attorney a question, if I may.
Sure. Go ahead.
Tony, I'm 100% with Tyler in that you don't want to get into the bond if you don't have to. I've done that before, and it's a mess. However, having said that, in the unlikely, hopefully unlikely event that WCI would go bankrupt again, what's the status of the bond?
Oh, it all depends on what the pleadings are in the bankruptcy proceeding. We would try to make a claim against the carrier, and I can't tell you what would happen. I mean, that's a hypothetical I'm not sure I can answer.
This is in the name of Lennar anyway.
Lennar,
Yeah.
and they've been around for
Yeah,
40
I'm
years.
not worried
Not a
about that.
problem.
Everything's in the name of Lennar?
It's Lennar now, so
Yeah.
you've got the financial backing of Lennar.
WCI is wholly owned by Lennar now, I think is what she's.
I'm willing to accept that.
And one other item
what
too,
it is.
Mr. Members, I believe, and if it's not in our manual, we need to put in there that when we look at additional plans in the future, if we notice any deficiencies that have taken place with prior projects by the same applicant, that can be taken into account as to whether or not we have our necessary reasonable assurances that they're going to comply with our criteria. You know, if they wish to provide, in addition to the bond, an additional warranty for a couple of years, maybe, but.
Again, making these motions all on the basis that this thing, and not everybody, nobody on this is lily white. I mean, this thing
Nobody's
is
gonna
a
be.
mess, and let's get it going and do it the best we can and cover ourselves with what we got. I don't see any other choice. I sure as heck do not want to get into litigation over something like this, and sorry, Charles and Tony, but I don't want to see your professions benefit by this. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
That's a fair statement.
So,
Are the catch basins to be cleaned with the bond money?
In my opinion, they probably can't because it's the operations and maintenance, in my opinion.
They can,
So-
or cannot?
I would say they would probably not come under that because it's operations and maintenance and not capital or construction or defect issue.
Yeah, what we're going to do is have to clean those. That's all we can do. Along with about 1,000 other ones in Gateway.
Why are you gonna accept something that's dirty? I don't understand it. If I'm buying a car and go from the parking lot to the dealership study to sign for it, and the car gets damaged, by God, I don't buy it. Fix it.
We have one thing that we can do and test that system is ask them to do it. They don't do it, we take it to the bond. And you'll get an answer to it real quick. That'll answer the question,
Or not real quick?
or not real quick. That doesn't bother me.
Just in response, I mean, I appreciate where they're coming from. However, from our standpoint, and I think any developer in the world's standpoint, or in the state of Florida, if you go to turn it over at a certain date and you're a year and a half, 2 years later, and there's a lot of maintenance they paid for 2 years, which WCI should not have been paying under any circumstance, they've been paying it, there is this maintenance item, if the operating entity picks it up forget about legal arguments, from a fairness standpoint, I think we've already gotten the short end of the stick. I mean, so, I don't think, I sense from this it's an unfair thing, but in every community, this would not have happened. This is a unique situation where WCI has paid 100% of these costs for a year and a half, 2 years. That never happened. And I don't want to say anyone's getting a free ride per se on purpose or anything, but it's really been a pretty, I mean, I look at this as does Lennar, who did not do this community early on, and are thinking, what happened here? the residents have gotten 100% of the maintenance instead of their pro rata share paid for 2 years, and that never happened.
WCI has given us a short end of the
Well, there may
stick
be
for
other-
years.
And I understand. there
Don't
may be
get
other
into that.
issues, But on this, I mean, that would be the response to
Don't give you that,
that.
Charles.
I understand.
So in essence, the master association has been paying for the cleanup on this.
They should have been, but they were not. Yes, that's the way it would normally work, but they haven't been. WCI had been paying 100%, but that's the point I'm making, as you probably are aware in the other community, in Stony Brook. That's how it would work. That association would have paid in the interim. They were not doing that here. WCI was paying 100% of these costs. That is out of the ordinary, without a doubt. But and it's water under the bridge, but I mean, we felt like we had to respond to that assertion about the fairness. And I understand there's probably a whole array of other issues too, but on that point.
I'll still state where I'm at. We can take the challenge of testing the bond on this, but I don't want this to be the tail that wags the dog.
The
I wanna
cat-
go
How
ahead.
many catch basins are in Casella 1 and 2
Probably
approximately?
10, maybe
12.
12? Yeah, 10, 12. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that sound about right?
So on that, I will call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
So the motion fails because we have only 4 board members here, so.
I'll go back. What would it take either one of you to change it to get this approved tonight?
I don't
What
like,
provision?
I don't like phase 1 and 2. Phase 2 is not developed at all, and that place is a mess.
Kathleen, I couldn't agree with you more, but we've been told by our consultant that it's the way it should be done.
Well,
I don't like it either.
I
but-
think we're gonna have to come back on that. Your question is not out of order, but I think we're gonna have to come back and after our professionals have had some more conversation.
Okay.
What I would suggest possibly, Madam Chairman and members of the board, is have this on the next agenda.
Yes.
And in the meantime, if Rhonda can send to me the proposed increased bond, or you're shaking your head no, Charles, that that's off the table now?
I know
Well, I'll let my
it's,
client speak, but-
I know it's.
I'm sorry?
Let me just say, I know it's a frustration, but one of the issues tonight is we don't have a full board. So, you know,
Okay. You either take a revote, or we're gonna have to go another direction.
First of all, Ms. Brewer, I don't think it's appropriate to threaten this
I'm
board.
not threatening them, I'm just letting, I want to be very clear, because this is a pivotal night for us. This is a pivotal night, so I just wanted to be very clear about that.
well, we'll put it on the next agenda anyway, because we anticipate having a 5-member board that evening, so. They'll move us to Monticello Drainage Lake 12 change order Pelican Reserve.
Move approval.
Is that all we need to do?
I think we just ought to have staff,
Explain?
staff indication that that's their recommendation, and I'll second it on that.
And that's actually an error on my part. The actual
Yes, it
change,
is.
the change order is $6,575, and I actually mistook this because there's another project going on Lake 12, and and we have about 14 projects going on over there, and I thought they were adding a significant change order to it, on that, so it's actually 6575, which I could have done under signature, and the purchase order for that has been issued.
Okay, well, we've got a motion to approve it, and I believe that
I'll
we have a
second
second.
Yeah.
So any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No.
You've got your change order.
Thank you.
More
Supervisor
downspouts.
comments? I'll start with Mr. Guy tonight.
It's a good thing that we work together well as a board, because we certainly have some contentious issues, and
We do.
it's nice to be able to work them through without yelling at one another, and
I like that
we
too.
make much more progress than some previous boards that I've been with, and I appreciate the way you run the meeting, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I tried. Mrs. Flaherty.
I do. And I was wondering about street signs when they're gonna be replaced. I've been asked.
I'm sorry, the what's gonna be?
Street signs.
Broken street signs.
Broken.
I know that Mike is working on that, because I talked with him earlier this evening, and
No.
he's getting quotes.
Okay, thank you.
And in some cases, they've been ordered, and right now, like everything else, like screening,
Yeah.
and pool screen and that, it's in short supply.
They're
It's
on
active.
the
Lots
list.
of, lots of luck. They won't even return your calls.
I have screen, I've got extra screen.
How much?
$40 a square foot. Does she have anything else?
Any, Kathy? Did you
That
have
was
any-
it.
That was it.
I have two items, and I think somebody addressed it earlier. I'd like to change our rules such that for the speaking time, that when we have people like Bob, Phil, our committee chairs and that come in to discuss an issue, I don't want to sit there and see that light. Well, I want to get the issue done, and if it takes 3 minutes, or if it takes 4 minutes or 5 minutes, I'd like to get those issues done. Now, the general public that come in, I understand what that is, but when it's people that's working essentially for us and at no cost, or fee, or salary, or benefits, I think we should give them the courtesy of letting them speak on the presentations they've worked hard to present. So I'd like to have a waiving of that time for those type of deals.
And I think we do, like when P-PAC has their report, I don't think we've
Yeah, I-
ever limited you to 5
I think we've done a pretty
minutes.
good job, but I don't want somebody to come back and say, well, you did it to him, but you didn't do it to me. If we have an understanding that our people that are working for us and reporting to us run over a little bit, I think we should
That's
acknowledge
the
it.
discretion of the chair.
Yeah, what I would suggest, I'll double check the meeting protocol and the rules of procedure, see if there needs to be any tweaking.
Just
and
cover
Come
that.
back to the board.
Then the last one I'd like is that, boy, Chris and I and Mike talked about this today. I think its time has come. We have got to retain an inspector. We got to have somebody out here on these jobs. Mike hadn't got time to do it, Elle hadn't have time to it, Chris doesn't have the time to do it. We need to be able to hire a gray-haired construction-type guy that's on our payroll.
We're not hiring you.
I said old.
You said gray-headed.
And I sure as heck, thank you.
He's not
I sure-
totally- he's
I
not
sure-
totally gray yet,
I sure
though.
as heck am not looking for the job, but we need an inspector that can be out there watching this stuff. Things that are happening, if it weren't for the staff that we got now, we got Kenny and some of the new people, Mike, Elle, and Chris, that they're watching this stuff, but, I mean, we're all over the place. You can't be there at all these places, and I've been on the side of the developer. They're not gonna come in and rat on their sub-sub. It ain't gonna happen. We gotta have somebody that's representing our interests, and one way of doing it is we take that money, if we have to change the format, I believe we get paid an amount based upon the number of lots that we have a fund that we collect from these developers per the permit criteria manual. Is that not correct?
Well, actually, the inspection fees that we incur through Tetra Tech, we pass through to them. However, that inspection rebate stops when we do the turnover and conveyance. So if we accept Casella, at that point, it would be on our dime, but it'd probably be well worth the time.
And the other one is, that he makes a good point. The next issue is that, again, the discussion today, we've got these vendors, the wetland vendors and the pond vendors, that are going out and doing this work. I have no idea that when we're paying for this sonar, which is at an exorbitant price per gallon, I don't know that they aren't spraying milk. Who's checking this? We have nothing to verify what we're getting. But the big one I'm worried about is this construction stuff that came up tonight. The issues of the landscaping. We're learning a lot as we're going along. One, these things went way too far. This Casella and Mattery should have been done, or especially Casella. That thing should have been closed a long time ago. Instead of us sitting here talking about approving 1 and 2 or getting lassoed into doing 1 and 2 they haven't even broken ground yet. It's absurd. But we need somebody with eyes that represents our interests, and my recommendation would be to authorize Chris to proceed with trying to find somebody that would fill that position that could be our representative, kind of a jack of all trades, to be able to do this. But he might have to be educated in the wetland side or the pond side. But if he has a construction background in the utility business, boy, that would be helpful as can be. So I would just suggest that Chris get on that and report back to us any success in getting somebody for that. We can't do this without
Why don't
it.
we ask what Chris has to say about
Yeah.
that?
Okay.
I think that's a solid idea, and not to malign Mr. Agapi and Tomez, because they're out there, working hard, but do they
This
have
is
10
full-time,
years in
not part-time.
construction business? And we could look at that, or even having somebody that works for another firm 2 or 3 days a week to come out. But I think in a lot of these cases, if we had more eyes on the ground, a little more of a presence, which we've been trying to do, especially on the utility side out there.
If we liked what happened tonight, we will love, absolutely love, when we have this discussion on Hampton Park. If you liked it tonight, you'll love it then. Because there's some real serious stuff happening there.
You may
And we
never get-
as-
you may never get a quorum.
We as a board, I'll tell you, I went to that Hampton Park and I've been biting my tongue for the last 3 hours. I never been so mad in my life as the tongue lashing this board, this community, this GSCDD got at Hampton Park on Tuesday night. Lennar.
Because the National Association put some money in their budget?
No, Lennar and Baracco, I mean, berating us, belittling us, making statements that were the worst CDD that they have worked with.
Who said that?
Mr. Smith, Lennar.
No, Smith.
Mr. Smith, Lennar, big shot. Making these statements that were just false.
I know
that we-
you can give it back to them. You're
but-
good at that. Didn't you give it back to them?
They wouldn't let me speak while they were there. They left. Then I spoke. But my point is that issue one, we didn't do our job pursuant to our manual. Tyler was there in May, and I don't know how many I don't think Mike wasn't even here, but Tyler was there in May 2016 when they asked for a check. We did a walkthrough. They asked to end the walkthrough abruptly in the middle of the walkthrough because the list was getting too long. We then memorialized it with the letter, which was very well written letter, on June 1st, 2016. Tony followed it up with a legal letter about 30 days later on other legal related issues. We get the response 5 till 5 Tuesday afternoon before the board meeting or the Hampton Park meeting. Coincidentally, such that we wouldn't be able to address what is or isn't in that list of stuff. That's not kosher. But to tell the residents that we didn't work with them is bull. We gave it to them. We even discussed it when we met with them in June. Hey, where's the response to our letter? That was the first thing we asked, and we got a stall.
Well, I'm
So
sure you
it's-
made the residents aware of.
The residents are
it.
very much aware, but my point is that come the time they bring in that request, if we had fun tonight, we'll really have fun then, because there are some real serious shenanigans going on in Hampton Park.
Move adjournment at 6:50, Madam Chairman.
6:50 adjourned.
I'm sorry, 5:50.
5:50, sorry, 5:50.
You did better.